Welcome to the first video in my prenatal workout series. This is a core workout for your second trimester, and I will be doing another for the third trimester, so keep your eye out for that, it's on the way. This video is safe for you during pregnancy, especially if you're concerned about abdominal separation or diastasis recti. I've designed the video with that in mind. So that is the natural separation of the abdominal muscles along the midline. So this naturally occurs, but we want to avoid any exercises which can aggravate that and make the separation wider, and hopefully that will help us avoid a lingering diastasis postpartum. And that diastasis can sometimes cause back pain, it can make your abdomen, your tummy look like you're pregnant when you're not, you look huge, and it's also interlinked with incontinence. So we really want to work on core training rather than abdominal training while pregnant. I am a prenatal Pilates instructor. I've been teaching prenatal Pilates for the last 7 years or so. It's one of my favourite classes to teach. Just getting to experience all of the workouts now for myself and feel what they're like in my body. I'm 29 weeks pregnant at the moment. So kind of getting into my third trimester now. I feel that the workout I have in mind is still safe for me to do. It's still something that I teach in class. So without further ado, here is the workout. So we're going to begin with some light abdominal connection. So you want to make sure that you're sitting nice and evenly. So you're able to sit up nice and straight. And we're going to lean forward just a little bit, and if you like you can rest your hands on the lower part of your bump. So we're going to begin with what's called transversus abdominis engagement. So starting off, just relaxing through your shoulders, breathing deeply. You're going to take a deep breath. And on an exhale, I want you to feel that you can very lightly draw your lower abdominal wall up and away from your hands. So it's a very light lift and engagement. And on the inhale, relaxing back down. So on an exhale, you want to feel that you can very lightly draw your abdomen up and away from your hands. And inhaling and relaxing back down. So when you do this, you want to make sure that you're not getting a very hard sensation in your abdomen, and you're not feeling that your ribs are pressing down up above. So it should feel a little like a lift up and in, rather than pressure downwards. So that's a sign that you're doing it correctly. Another way to test is if you press your thumbs in just underneath the edges of your ribs, and you don't want to feel too much activation up there. So sometimes you can get what's called oblique gripping up there when you do this. You want to feel that it's just a very light engagement, more at the bottom of your bump. So again, taking a nice deep breath in, and on the exhale, just lightly lifting the abdomen, the lower abdomen up and in, and relaxing down. So throughout the video, this will be a little bit of an deep abdominal contraction, which on certain parts of the movement, we're going to get a little sense of this drawing up and in, and relaxing back. So we're going to do this in the first exercise, which is cat-cat. So we're going to go to a 4-point kneeling position. So in this, we're going to work on that light lift and engagement. You might see the engagement more when I'm on my side, and working on lifting up through the upper back, rather than dipping down through the lower back. So we're going to have knees under the hips, hands slightly above your shoulders, and a pretty level position across your back. So watching out for a dip down. So on an exhale, we're into that same sense of lift. So exhaling and feeling that you can draw the abdomen up and in ever so slightly, and just relaxing ever so slightly on an inhale, thinking more about breathing through the sides of your ribs. So every exhale, getting that deep engagement, and inhaling and breathing into the sides of the ribs. So next we're going to add a little bit of movement. You feel a little bit like a pelvic tilt. So on an exhale, I want you to think of curling your tailbone a little bit down toward the floor, and inhaling and bringing your spine back to neutral. So on an exhale, small movement, tailbone points down toward the floor, and inhaling and bringing the spine back into neutral. So we want to avoid this and exaggerate this one. So watch out for lifting up through your upper back and then dropping down. I want you to think more about your lower back moving. So you want to feel that the lumbar spine lifts up slightly and then flattens back out again. And if you have a tight back like mine tends to be, sometimes you might just get a little bit out of a flat back and it'll feel more like a slightly curved spine, and then bring the curve back. So the cat-cow in this is a little bit smaller than maybe you're used to. So in yoga class it's usually the full spine curving all the way up and the full spine curving all the way down. But in this part, the initial part, we're going to just focus on the lower back. So next we're going to think about the upper back. So on the inhale, I want you to press quite firmly through your shoulders. Lift the breastbone up in front. And then on an exhale, feeling that you just drop the chest back to look toward the floor. So on an inhale, think about your breastbone looking slightly ahead of the floor, ahead of your fingertips, or ahead of the mat. And exhaling, and the breastbone looks right down between your thumbs. And inhaling, lifting the chest, getting a good press through your shoulders. And exhaling. So I'll show you what not to do, because one of my pet hates actually, is just moving the neck. You can head bang back and forth very easily. It's actually much harder to get the movement into your upper back. So I want you to think of keeping your chin sort of tucked in a little bit, feeling that you can find the upper back. If you're not sure, I'm trying to think how you can see this in the mirror actually. I say look in the mirror, but maybe have someone check you or videotape you. So it's an inhale as you lift the chest, and then exhale as we restore position. So I'm going to add both together. So exhaling, curling the tailbone down. Inhaling, lifting the tailbone and lifting the chest. Exhaling, dropping the chest, curling the tailbone underneath. A little bit of abdominal lift. And inhaling, focusing on breathing through the ribs and lifting up the breastbone. So do 2 more. And then we're on to our next. So we're going to do a little bit of core work by taking one of the legs away. So basically this is like bird dog or kneeling swimming. So we're going to try not to shift the body weight side to side. So an easy way to test this is if you do it with your shoulder and your hip near a wall, and you want to feel that you keep your hip just tight against the wall as you press back. So we're going to start with the right side. So keeping body weight in the right arm. You're going to slide your right toes straight back behind you, and then inhaling to come back in. So you're going to keep, you're going to do left side now, so it's alternating. So you exhale, body weight in the left hand, and inhaling, coming in. Exhaling right side, and inhaling in. I'm just feeling a little sense of that lifting the abdominals, and the same principles we had in cat-cow. So feeling that we keep the tailbone very slightly curled down and the breastbone very slightly lifted. So keeping a little bit of engagement in our upper back and keeping our back from taking the burden of this. So we're going to add a leg lift on the next one. But we want to make sure that doesn't curve down into your lower back. So as you lift up, think of your back staying nice and steady. So this will work into the back of the legs just a little bit more. And again, being mindful that we don't shift our body weight left and right. So I'm going to do an incorrect one. And that means we will lean over to the left and back. So it's exaggerating a lot. I'm going to add the lower back as well. So we don't want to let the lower back drift down. So this is the correct way. Body weight staying the same and keeping it out of my lower back. And the leg lift will still train your lower back, because the lower back muscles fire up anytime you lift your leg into extension like this. So it's not totally absent from the exercise, it's just not being hyperextended into. So I'm going to do one more right side and one more left. So we're going to add on the next part. So when you're ready, we'll come back forwards. Knees back underneath the hips, hip width apart. So we're going to do your right leg first, and your left arm is going to go out in front. So we exhale, reaching, and coming in. So if you're tight at all in the upper back or shoulders, you just want to try to feel that the arm moves. Sometimes we can try to get a little extra movement, but it's more of a twist. So I want you to think of shoulders staying the same height, neck nice and long. Exhaling as we reach out forward and back, inhaling as we come in. So nice steady breathing. I want you to think of fully exhaling all the air out, every molecule. Inhaling in the sides of the ribs. Exhaling, keeping tailbone down. Neck nice and long and not hyperextended. And so the add-on is that we're going to take the arm forward. Without shifting our body weight, we're going to take our right leg to the right, back behind us, and all the way back in. So go forward and back. Left leg goes left without taking body weight over to the right, and back in. And we're also not adding a counterbalance with the arm. Oh, and I'll try to demonstrate this. Try not to wag your tail with you. So I want you to keep your hips, your pelvis nice and steady. So I'll show what not to do with kind of that hip hike. So instead, I want you to just feel that the leg movement is from your hip and then back in. So you have one more right leg and then one more left. And then coming all the way in, easing back and just giving lower back and glutes a little bit of a stretch. And then kind of walking your way gently back up and giving the wrists some TLC after that. So next I had side bends, but I think I'll do the inner thigh lifts first so our wrists can get a little break. I'm used to the floor, but I know that when you're not used to wavering on the hands for a little while, it can be a little achy. So we're going to lay down on the side. So come all the way down. Try to find a relatively straight line from your hand to your shoulders, to your hips, all the way down to your ankles. And then we're going to adjust to make sure that the pelvis is stacked one on top of the other. One of the most common adjustments I make in class is that we tend to lie with the bottom hip slightly forward and the pelvis facing slightly upward. It's a little bit more comfortable actually. So shift your bottom hip back if you feel that you are facing slightly upward. And then you're going to have bottom leg forward and top leg slightly back, and the top leg might not fully reach the floor. So you want to try to do this without arching the back. So if you're running your hand along your lower back, you want to make sure that it doesn't feel like it has a big sway and your tailbone is pointing out behind. So if it is, I want you to feel that you can slightly curl your tailbone down to point more toward your ankles when they were in the center position. And that will also be the little movement that we did in the cat-cat, that feeling of curling your tailbone under. So keeping the pelvis nice and steady. So you want to feel with your hand maybe that you're not hiking your hip up. And we're going to float the legs just up and off the floor and then back down together. Back down to the floor, sorry. So it's exhale as we lift. Inhale, coming down. So it's bottom leg forward, top leg back. So this will help get into the inner thighs of the bottom leg and the glutes of the top side. And then by holding your waist steady here, we're also training the obliques, but in a very supportive position. So it's exhaling as we lift, and inhale as we bring the feet down. And if you do feel unstable on your side, just place your hand on the floor, give yourself a little bit of light support. Or sometimes it can just be that you feel comfortable that you're not going to roll forward onto your belly. So it might just be there to catch you. So we're going to do 4 more on this side. Again, thinking of that deep breath Even here on the side, we can get a little bit of that abdominal lift. Breathing in through the sides of the ribs. The tummy's talking to us as well. And then on the last one, dropping the legs down and curling the legs up. So you're going to press up off the floor. We're going to do the side bend on this side. So use both arms to press up rather than pulling up with the obliques. And then we're going to have knees on the floor and hand on the floor. So in this, in a side bend or a side plank, the more horizontal your waist is, the more horizontal your torso is, the more load that is placed on your waist. So to modify side bends and planks, you increase the height of your shoulders. So in this case, we're going to have hand on the floor and knees on the floor. So elbow on the floor is harder. So if your wrists are tired, you're going to have to elevate that to keep the same intensity through your side. If you're earlier on and you want to have deeper core workout through your side, elbow on the floor. But we're going to focus on length a little bit through the top side. So we want to feel that the inner thighs very lightly squeeze together. And as you lift up, we're going to form a capital T position, and then lifting up just a little bit, thinking of length through the side, reaching to the ceiling, and either sitting all the way down or hovering. So it's coming up, hips go forward. Nice inhale, expanding through the ribs, reaching up and coming back down. We exhale to inhale, and inhale to come down. So it's exhale, lift, inhale, curving, exhaling nice and straight, and exhaling down. And again, thinking of that little slight tailbone tuck that we practiced in cat-cow. So we're not doing this with the bum sticking out behind you. You're going to feel nice and straight from knees to shoulders, all the way through the line of the neck, taking that to a curve, reaching and easing down. So we're going to do 3 more. Also, that's a tendency of mine anyway, if your neck becomes tired, look down as you come over, just make sure it doesn't change what happens in your torso. I'm going to come all the way down. Make sure you go straight into the mermaid. So we're going to open up the knees slightly, just sit whichever way you're comfortable. And we're going to stretch a little bit through this side. So coming over for a side bend and getting nice length in the underside we just worked. And then we're going to switch over to the other side. So finding a nice straight position all the way along. Feeling that you're directly pelvis one side on top of the other, or hip one on top of the other. And then having our top leg back and bottom leg forwards. So starting off with a nice deep inhale, feeling the sides of the ribs move. Exhaling and floating up. And inhaling and easing down. And just keeping a nice steady breath, so being careful that we're not pumping the legs up and down and leaving out the deep core work which comes with the deep breath. So we want to exhale out all the way. And inhale fully and expand through the ribcage. Just getting nice work in the inner thighs of the floor leg. And let's rest on the floor and the gluteus medius, the glutes, super muscles on the top side. And if you do have the pelvis slightly rolled back, you won't get the same work in that top leg, so you do want to really feel that you're facing forward with the pelvis, you're directly on your side here. And if it's uncomfortable on the other hip, put a towel underneath, or get a nice spongy mat and place it underneath. We're going to go into our side bend next. So we rest the legs down, curl your knees up, make sure the arms press you off, so we don't want to flex up through the abdominals. And then getting ready for the side bend. So knees are stacked one on top of the other. The hand is slightly out from underneath the shoulder. And taking a nice deep breath. On an exhale, I'm going to press the hips slightly forward, a little bit of tail tuck, into a nice long line through the top side, reaching to the ceiling, and either floating or sitting the hips down. And if you don't feel comfortable all the way up here, you can do this with just a little lift of your hips, which I'll show in this one. So it's a little float, reaching long, reaching out and coming down. So if all the way up doesn't feel great, you don't have to go all the way up. You find your height, it feels good. You go to there and then coming back down. But always get a good bit of movement in your shoulders, so make sure your arm goes all the way. And maybe a little extra lift and coming down. Because that reach through your arm gives you nice length through those muscles, tissue at the side. So without having to lift any further, you can get good release. Hips forward, taking slightly under. Inhaling, expanding through the ribs. And then coming down. We're going to go into our mermaid stretch next. So when we come back down, open up the knees slightly, or so whichever way is comfortable for you in the legs. Reaching up and side bending over. Nice deep breath through your sides. And then easing out. So last is a side bend. A spine twist. So we're going to do this rather than focusing on getting all the movement through the lumbar spine. I'm trying to get as much as possible through the upper back, through your thoracic spine. Excuse me. So if you place your fingertips on the right side of your chest, so not your shoulder, because you just take your shoulder forward and back, on the right side of the upper chest and bottom side of the left side of the ribs. I want you to feel on an exhale that you can take the right side of the chest a little bit forwards and then opening up as you come back. So we're really sitting tall. So exhaling and inhaling. So what you're doing with your hands is feeling the ribs here don't travel too far back. They'll move a little bit. Just trying to keep it to the upper back. So you're feeling that twisting or the rotation action happen through the upper part of your spine, rather than just through the lower. Also be aware of how much your neck is moving. Sometimes you can feel it go very far, but we haven't really moved at all through the upper thoracic. Sort of the same as what can happen when we do cat-cow and just lift the chin. Can feel like you've gone a lot further than you really have because you perceive where we are with our eyes. So we're going to switch sides after this one. And you might be like me and have one side that you're a little bit more flexible towards. In which case this is a really good exercise to do. So it works on keeping that rotation nice and happy and healthy through the upper thoracic. Works the back muscles, also helps free you up for deeper back bends. So big exhale on the rotation and inhaling coming back, and make sure you're still sitting tall all the way from pelvic position nice and upright to your neck position at the top. So if you find it hard to sit on the floor cross-legged, prop yourself up on a stool. So I've got 2 blocks behind me. So sometimes if you find it hard to sit this way and the hips will be sitting this way, which makes it much more restricted. So you have to be upright all the way for this to be thoroughly effective for your spine. Do 2 more. exhale, inhale, coming back. And trying to keep that same sense of moving through the upper back. Nice strong breathing. Exhaling all the way. Inhaling, opening up through the ribs. And here we're going to have a little sense of elbows pointing down toward the floor. Helps open up the shoulders at the top. So one of the, I suppose, most familiar sights for me when I teach this in class, and one of the most familiar corrections is that this tends to happen. Actually, this tends to happen. So you want to think shoulders down, breastbone lifted, long neck. And it's just working on that ribs or postural muscles, which is very important to maintain throughout life, but especially during pregnancy. Postnatally, we'll be feeding our little babies in our arms, and that can promote a little bit of rolling forward of the shoulders and rounding forward through the upper back. So there is two elements to that rounded posture. Sure, I think of more, I think of a few more elements, but we'll go those as the main two. I'm going to go for one more. And then relaxing the arms down. So take a couple of backward shoulder rolls. And if you do find yourself feeling a little rounded forward throughout the day, a couple of these are really nice, maybe 10 or more. Rolling the shoulders back and just promoting the muscles which roll the shoulders down, shoulder blades down the back. So that was the second trimester core workout. So I hope you really enjoyed it. For more on some of the things that I described during the video, I have a blog post all about transversus abdominis engagement, so that deep abdominal cue. So full instructions on that, and I have that linked down below. There's also a complementary blog post called Pregnant to Push, the pelvic floor in pregnancy. So the transversus abdominis, the corset muscle, and the pelvic floor co-contract, they work together. So sometimes working on one will help the other engage as well. So definitely both of those are essential there down below. And I also have a complementary video, it's called How to Avoid Abdominal Separation During Pregnancy, and in that I discuss all the contraindicated exercises and why. So that's also linked down below, and I'm sure I can make them pop up somewhere here on the screen. So if you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, it's very helpful for me here as a fledgling YouTuber, and please subscribe to the channel. If you're interested in my prenatal workout series, it's a full email sequence that I'm going to send out with more than just the videos. So if you want all of the videos straight to your inbox with all those extra little bonuses to that, please subscribe down on the website too. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you for the next video.